He's Tom Russo, a partner at Gardner Russo Gardner. And Tom, we're like old friends now, right?
Yes.
Coming to Omaha to talk to Warren Buffett and to go to these meetings. Very interesting. There's a lot of interesting aspects about this deal. But before we get to that, though, overall, when you're sitting there in that room, what are you going to be listening for from Buffett?
Well, how he describes what he's getting in return, at least as the Burlington Northern transaction is related in this case, what he's getting in return. To whatever extent he can shed light on his view of the future returns from Burlington, I think it's a very important deal. He was able to deliver a large amount of cash from his investment portfolio. He'll put that money to work.
But is it a good deal in your view?
I think so.
Are you satisfied with it, even though he says we're going to get moderate returns from this?
Well, no, I think it's a strong competitive advantage. I spoke recently to the folks at Miller Brewing, and they thought years ago they never would have considered rails. They were inefficient. The logistics were terrible. Today they're efficient. Their logistics are great. They have salespeople who call on companies. They really do a better job in many instances than diesel trucks. And so the competitive advantage that he picks up is terrific. And then over time, what Warren possesses as a result of the deal is he has a great manager today who he can incent, Matt Rose, who he can incent to invest capital the proper way. So as a public company, Burlington may have avoided taking investments that may have depressed current earnings, even though they were terrific long-term investments.
Right, and
inside Berkshire, they can do that inside Berkshire. He'll encourage it. If Matt were to retire and somebody else a decade along the way comes to be the new CEO and may have had a thought of an air-sea link to the rail business and made a silly investment, Berkshire would have been less well served because they still had $10 billion in stock. This way they secure the reinvestment forever, and he's able to deliver a large amount of money which won't have to be invested by a successor.
Now, and of course succession is something we always talk about with Buffett, but one thing that was talked about a lot about with this deal, and I'm sure as a shareholder you're very puzzled by it, maybe is the word, I don't know, but splitting these shares, which Buffett has always said he hates stock splits, he hates issuing new shares. And yet, with Kraft, you saw that at work. He said he didn't want to do that. He was going to vote against that. And yet he's gone ahead and done the exact same thing in his company. So, some would say hypocrisy there. Well,
it's so funny because I heard him speak recently about the Kraft deal, and he said fundamentally, what's the difference? He says, I feel poorer now. I feel poor. My investment's been diluted. And he spoke about the fact that that Kraft did two things. They sold the Giorno, and net of taxes received a very small amount of consideration relative to their current earnings. And then if you layer onto the acquisition the costs of restructuring and the costs of the merger and the costs of other aspects of the deal, they're paying a lot more.
Right.
And so on two sides he feels poor, and he spoke out against it. And as a shareholder, that's the right thing to do.